Welcome to the Ultra Dad Beyond the Finish Line podcast. Our next guest is someone I've been trying to connect with for a couple of years now, but I've loved his products. His products sent me through my first ultra marathon, and I absolutely love the lemon lime sports jelly. Keeps me going all the way through to the end. Our next guest is the founder of the company, Mountain Fuel, and his name is Rupert. Welcome to the show.
How you doing? Yeah, there's another part of Mountain Fuel as well. Darren Foot's the other part of Mountain Fuel. So it's actually Darren that founded Mountain Fuel originally.
Wow.
Okay. So he basically was in the army. He was thinking about kind of coming to the end of his time in the army, and I suppose he was a bit kind of frustrated by the kind of what they were given when they went out. They'd be serving in various countries in different kind of temperatures and climates and things, and kind of felt that what he was given wasn't really doing what it should do for somebody who's kind of working in the extreme and kind of having to really push themselves physically. And that's kind of how he came up with the idea of coming up with a kind of a system to kind of fuel you. And so the original kind of concept was the kind of powders you kind of mix with water or milk, and there's a kind of a night fuel, the breakfast fuel, and the energy drinks. And then since then, I've kind of got together with him, and we've kind of broadened the product range and made it more focused to, kind of real endurance kind of sport. So, so I'm just half of the original team.
Yeah, nice. So how did you, have you been friends with Darren? Did you guys meet through something?
Basically, I had a ski business. It was it sounds a bit cool. No, it wasn't a ski, but it was like a ski travel agency. So we were selling other people's ski holidays, and we were pretty successful. And it was a little bit kind of complicated the way that it ended. I won't go into it on this, but it was not very pleasant. It wasn't very nice, and it took a few years to kind of get resolution in that. But eventually we did, and I was in a position where I was kind of looking at what am I going to do next. And my brother, who has a gym had at the time had a gym in Australia, and he'd come over to the UK to see us for Christmas. I think it was Christmas time, and he basically said, "Look, I'm going to see this guy down in Wales. I'm thinking of importing this product. You might be interested in having a crack with him." So we went down to see him. He came back. He said, "Look, I really do think you should talk to him. He's in a similar position to you in that he's had some issues with fellow directors, and he's kind of been left in a very vulnerable position and kind of really could do with some kind of help with the business." I was lucky because I'd kind of got through that stage, and we got a fair resolution to it, and kind of got few quid. So then I kind of met with Darren. I basically used the fuel for about probably nearly a year. I was using the fuel, like just getting it off and buying it off him and using it just to see if I liked it. It's like that. What was that old? I don't know if you're old, how old you are, but there was that advert that used to be on the telly that I used. It was a razor advert, and I used it so much. I bought the company kind of thing, and I can't remember. I think it was Braun or somebody, but it was very much a case of I was using this product, and it was making this big difference when I was out running on the fells, particularly taking nutrition that seriously. I'd always been aware of nutrition because my dad is, kind of fairly well known kind of expedition leader and stuff. So they'd always had to be very serious about the kind of nutrition that they used and took. But I'd be quite blasé about it, younger and stuff. But anyway, I kind of got to the point I was thinking, I think I've got to do something here, because if I don't, what happens if the business doesn't carry on, or Darren decides I've had enough? And I thought, well, a minute, that's really going to impact on my running. So I kind of, we kind of had a crack and we worked something out. And and then from then I kind of partnered up, and we kind of took it on from there. And, and it's been a roller coaster of a ride. It has been a real challenge at times, but, we're now in a position where we're, fairly established in the endurance market. I think that we don't, I think there's a lot of kind of new brands when they come out have to kind of come out shouting how amazing they are and how different they are and how unique they are and stuff like that. And I think we're quite steady. I don't think we try to be too much. We just offer a very good system that does a very good job that people enjoy using, that does get good results. And we just try to stay very down to earth with it. And I think that kind of helps create quite a loyal kind of user base. So.
No, for sure, I agree there. I first came onto your guys' stuff. I think I may even downloaded your ultramarathon guide, and I was looking for an alternative fuel because I tried some of your competitors, I guess, and the results of running with them didn't particularly pan out that well. So my favorite is the lemon lime. I've already mentioned the sports jelly. I think when you sent me the first order and there was a personalized handwritten note in there, I don't know if they're printed or what, or written out by someone, but I thought that was a really nice touch. Just going back a little bit about, you talked about the challenges of the business. Can you elaborate a little bit more about what those might have been or what those have been?
I think when you've got a new brand, you kind of like, the sports nutrition market's been very similar in the way that it's done things over the years. And I think it still is, in the sense of the events just want free stuff for goodie bags. Events just want free stuff for feed stations. Not all events anymore. You'll get your called elite users or kind of higher profile users who are used to just getting free product. And I think when we first started, that was kind of the case, that, Darren had been in a position where he kind of felt he had to kind of try to prove the product. So he was kind of giving it to kind of well-known people to try to get it out there and things like that. And events would want it and you'd do it. But to me, that kind of like just doesn't lead to any loyalty. I'm very much a case of, well, look, if somebody truly believes it's a product that's either going to help you as an individual perform better, or as an event, it's going to actually help the user experience. And as such, if it helps user experience, it's going to mean potentially they rave about the event more, or they come back to do another event of theirs, or they come back to do the same event again because I'm going to get their time. Then surely they should be prepared to pay for it, because the margins and markups on sports nutrition are fractional, especially for us, because, we're not a company that kind of went out there and went to, a manufacturer and said, right, so-and-so do a really good product. Can you basically make a version of that, but let's just use a different flavor or a slightly different ingredient to make it slightly different. Every single one of our products is really well kind of planned, researched, tested, and used, and it's got to fit within the system, and it's got to have a very, very real need. Like you keep mentioning the sports jellies. We didn't do a gel for years because I didn't like them. They, to me, I wanted to be able to, if I went to speak to somebody and they said, right, I want to do a marathon or I want to run an ultra, I at that point couldn't turn around to them and say, right, well, look, we've got these powders, we've got this, you do all this stuff, but actually on top of it, have a gel every 30 minutes. I couldn't confidently look them in the eye and say to do that, because my personal experience of gels was, it was a little bit like, that there's the that gun thing where you put one bullet in the barrel and you spin it and you put it to your head and you pull the trigger. Is it going to blow your head off or not? It was almost like, is this gel going to blow something off? And it's not my head, it's something else, and that happened. Yeah, that's happened to me running around the fells. That's happened. It's not very pleasant having to jump into bracken and worry about other folk. It's not great. So that's something that we didn't want to do. So it took us years to kind of come up with the concept and the idea and actually find a manufacturer, to find somebody who is prepared, because our product is a real pain in the ass to make. Those sports jellies are a nightmare. Luckily, the guys we use, they were brilliant, because the first 2 or 3 batches were wasted. And when I'm talking batches, I'm talking like, probably 3 or 4 tons of jelly that didn't quite get right. The process, the mix, just the way that it's put together, it just didn't quite work. And it took us a long time to get it to what it is. So I think it's just really important to us to be different and to make sure that now, we don't give people free product. We don't pay people. We don't give events free stuff. And there was that big transition for people to get their heads around that. Look, you're an elite athlete. Okay, I'll tell you what, I'll give you a discount. I won't give you it free. If you really think it's going to help you, I'll give you a discount. But I'll tell you what else I'm going to do. I'm not going to ask you to do anything. I'm not going to ask you to, every time you do an event, stand there holding up a Mountain Fuels jelly or do X number of social media posts or force it down people's throats. I'm just going to say, look, if you feel it's relevant, tell people about it. If you feel it's relevant, tag us in, we'll share it, we'll do whatever. But there's lots and lots of athletes who will use our products, who are, whether they're elite, whatever, and it's the same message to all of them. And, so we'll get people who win certain races who might even be sponsored by another product. They'll have to do that with the product they're sponsored by, hold up the stuff and do the thing. And actually, they've also used our products in amongst that other product. But we just smile and just think, nice, we're doing a good job, and it's the same with events. We get lots of events contact us and say, look, we really like you to, we love your product. I think it's the best product out there, blah, blah, blah. I said, brilliant. Yeah, no, we're doing an event pack. It's going to cost you X, Y, and Z, and this is what you get. And these results these other events have got. And some of them will come back and say, yeah, okay, well, we'd love to do that. And actually, we end up working with them for years. And the ones that turn around and say, no, actually, we've actually found somebody. But they just use a different person every single year. So it's kind of like, you're not really giving your customers, your event users, the best options. You're just giving them what you can get for free, which isn't always the best thing for them. So, so I just think we've tried to do things slightly differently to what others are doing. I think some other people now are following our lead. Other people now are doing similar to us because I'm very open about it. I talk to our competitors and I'll say, look, and I think a lot of people have copied the way that we do things. I think we were one of the first nutrition not to we had like our kind of team Mountain Fuel, and we had some really good guys in amongst that, and then we kind of broadened it out to ambassadors and stuff. But now you get a lot of people who will put teams together and things, but I think they have a slightly different approach to the way they do it. Yeah, so I think we like to lead in some of the things that we do, but we don't necessarily make a massive song and dance about it on social media as such.
Yeah. Okay. In terms of marketing and stuff that you are doing, what are you doing to grow and bring new customers in? Is it mostly organic, like you mentioned, or are you doing other stuff?
Yeah, I think it's hard to quantify, but I think that word of mouth is a pretty good thing, and that's what we encourage people to do, just to talk to people, and especially you're in a club and stuff like that, rather than whack it on social media, which sometimes can have a bit of a negative, having that real chat. Oh yeah, I tried this and I use this and this is how I use it and this is what worked for me, but maybe you should try X, Y, or Z. That I think is better. So I think the word of mouth is good. I think we like to, we do like to kind of share people's stories. Somebody, whether they've come 200th out of 200th and they've tagged us into a post, they've done this amazing race, we're happy to share that and say this person's done this. as the person that's won the race. I think that's quite important. I think that sometimes turns off the more elite kind of people because they just want to see, or people chasing to want to be associated with the elite people because they kind of just want to see you always posting about, we've won this and we've won that. But I think it's really good to just have a balance, because I think in my mind, it's like there's 3 people in a race who out of each age category, but let's just call it the 3 people who really win it, who actually win it. Everybody else is essentially running just for themselves and against themselves, because 90% of them probably have no chance of winning it. So it's just a personal battle. So to us, it's kind of like that's who we should be looking at, rather than just those 1, 2 or 3 people in each race. It's actually the 90% who we should be looking at. And I think that's why we do the guides. So like you mentioned, you downloaded a guide. So we've got our nutrition guides. And, they're not a Bible as to what to do. They just give people an idea and a guide. And, we get a lot of people emailing us or contacting us and kind of saying, oh, right, okay, I'm doing this, that and the other. And, what do you think? And I do try to respond to everybody and give advice, because I think one of the things is there's lots of science out there. There's lots of people that jump on science, and there's lots of people that jump on the latest fads. And I think for me, I use practical science. So I use the science of what actually proven in the real world. So kind of real world science. You can say that somebody can consume 120 grams of carbs an hour using this magic glucose fructose mix. But the reality is there's probably only 1 in 1,000 people who could manage that. So the reality is most of us can only really manage 40 to 60 grams of carbs an hour for practical reasons, for effort reasons, for enjoyment reasons, for financial reasons. There's so many others, billions of reasons, So I think that we are able to kind of apply a very practical knowledge to what people are doing. And because everybody's very individual, it depends on what it is. It depends on what you're really trying to do, the effort you're prepared to put in. What your stomach's like, there's so many factors. So we try to be a far more realistic guide to that. So I'm going all over the place. I know this is meant to be about marketing, but this is kind of us. I suppose for me, it's more about, and like we do the odd interview here and there with people, but again, we try to pick just people who are, knowledgeable and practical within their fields. Not necessarily the elite person, because it's like, if I was going to interview somebody for a marathon, I would say some of my competitors would absolutely wet themselves to be interviewing the world record holder. I personally would like to interview the guy that's doing a marathon in about 3 or 4 hours, because actually he's the one that people should be listening to, because the guy that does it in 2 hours, well, it barely fuels. It's a totally different fueling strategy to the rest of us. So it's almost it's a bit dangerous for us to be looking at influencers or successful people and following their advice. If somebody's running a 50-mile race in 9 hours, don't listen to them unless you can run 50 miles in 9 hours. If you run 9 miles in that time, absolutely. You need to listen to the person who successfully finished 6 50-mile races in 14 hours, because that's probably your time. Do you know what I mean? And that's I think that's the difference in our approach to what other people possibly do.
Yeah. So you're an experienced trail runner. Obviously, you've had a few injuries and things. What sort of product or nutrition would you recommend to, say, a dad that's just starting out, maybe in their first marathon or their first ultra?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, I think you've got to get your general diet sorted. So forget sports nutrition to start with. I think you've got to look at your actual day-to-day diet and your day-to-day hydration. Because unless you get those basics sorted, it makes it really, really hard to train effectively and to actually race effectively. Because the supplements that we make are that. They're supplements that to go on top of the diet that you have. Now, I'm not saying, for practicality wise or things like that, it's necessarily easy to kind of cook everything from fresh and this and the other, because you might just not have the time. But I think the more fresh food that you can eat, that you can cook, that you can make, the better, rather than kind of processed kind of ready meals and stuff. So first and foremost, I would say, look, try as best as you can to eat as balanced a diet as you can to make sure that kind of base is right. Then I would say, absolutely. Then, depending on the times you're training, that's where, say, somebody like Mountain Fuel will come in. So if you can only train really early in the mornings, you might look at our morning fuel, because it's very easy to make, very easy to consume, and it will keep you going for hours. So that's a really convenient early morning training thing. Or it might just be that you use one of the energy fuels. Again, you have a little light breakfast and you have an energy fuel. So it very much depends on the person's circumstances. But I would say it's more a case of looking at the system that we have and utilizing where it's sensible. Early mornings, you might use the morning fuel or the energy fuel, or you might just use one of the bars out of convenience. After you've done that, I'm a firm believer in, using the recovery fuels as much as possible. But obviously I appreciate there's a cost involved. So again, it's about being practical. But what the recovery fuels do is that they do enable you to then recover quicker and more effectively. So actually your training becomes more efficient because you are properly looking after your muscles. So, so those are the kind of basics. And then things like the jellies and things, well, they are there for making sure that when you are training, when you are running, you are looking after your muscles, and you are actually, I suppose the analogy is, if you're going to train, you want to train as effectively as you can. So if you go out every day and train and you don't take on board any fuel, then A, you're possibly not getting as much as you could out of that session. But B, more importantly, you are stressing your muscles and stressing your immune system, your system every single day. So the better you can feed it, the better it is. So obviously, go back to what I said originally, if you're eating really well, you have to take on board less supplements to help you in that process. If you're not eating well, you probably feel that you need to have more supplements to help you in that process. So yeah, so it's difficult. I would always say to anybody starting out, look, go to our nutrition guides, download them. If I'm not downloaded anymore, they're actually just on the website. Log in, read them, have a little, maybe get a taster pack, have a little play, find what works for you, and go from there. And then any questions, you just ask either us or actually somebody else. Quite often it's somebody else who's kind of put you in touch with, say, oh, you should try Mountain Fuel. Well, ask them, what do you normally do? I'm working a 60-hour week this week. I'm finding it really hard to get my evening training. And I'm knackered afterwards. What do you normally do? And they might say, oh, well, actually, I use a night fuel afterwards. Really helps when I get up in the morning for me early shift or whatever. Find out what other people do as well. And that kind of makes the big difference.
In terms of the product range, you've talked a little bit about letting the market dictate that. What have been the most successful products that you guys have, and why do you think that they are successful?
I think your favourite, the sports jellies, because, they are just so easy on the stomach. They're not like a gel, so they're not kind of really sickly sweet. They just kind of disappear in your mouth. So they're kind of more refreshing in a sense. You don't need to have water with them as such. So the sports jellies, and, with people like Sabrina Verjee, when she did her Wainwright's record, she had over 100 of the sports jellies. Now, if you had over 100 gels, you'd be sitting on the loo for 6 months, but she still used them, a few weeks after that in other events. I think the sports jellies, I think the feel-good bars, we did feel-good bars, we've had a bit of a roller coaster with those over the past couple of years because we've kind of changed the shape. We wanted to use recycled packaging. So we kind of had to mess around with them and buy, because they're a tray bake. These are handmade in the Lake District, these bars. It's industrial bakers, but they are tray bakes. So just altering the heights, the sizes, the this and the other, all impacted on them. So we have had they were amazing. But then in my opinion, went through a bit of a rocky stage where they just weren't quite as good while we were trying to get the shape and size sorted. And now they're back to being absolutely brilliant again. So the feel good bars, everybody's got a favourite. Yeah, I get stages, because I have stages where it's like, I'll literally live on the morning fuel because it's just so good. Just an early morning start. It's just brilliant. And then, or if I am training and doing stuff, I'll be the recovery fuels are just absolutely brilliant. So the problem is I'm going to talk about them all being brilliant and amazing, but I think the best sellers, definitely the jellies.
In terms of the feel-good bars, when would be the optimal time to have those? Is that something that you thought about as a snack during the day, or is it something when you're doing an ultra? When should those be the optimum time to take?
Yeah, I think the beauty of a lot of things in our system, that they are very versatile. You know, like the feel-good bars, the morning fuel, call it morning fuel. The morning fuel can be used pre-training in the afternoon, pre-race in the afternoon. It's just a really good, energy efficient little bit of fuel that's dead easy to use and consume. Feel good bars are the same. So, you know, some people use them instead of a breakfast. Some people will use them pre-training in the evening. So when they're at work and they know they're going to go out for a run at, say, 6 o'clock, maybe about 4 o'clock, they'll have a feel good bar, because they know that by the time they finish work, they've got it there, it's in the system, they just go out, do a nice steady run or whatever. And some people do, just because they are bloody, you know, I'm the worst for it. If I'm having to go, you know, if the girls can't do the packing and I'm going to help do orders and stuff, I'll be chomping on a feel good bar in the office with a cup of tea. So, you know, it like all these things, you know, it's down to preference, but ultimately they are an endurance bar. They're designed to be easy to eat on the go. So whether you are running a very steady marathon, well, whether you are doing an ultra, or whether you're going for a long walk for the day, or whether you want it pre-training, they're a brilliant resource because of the coconut oil, the flaxseed, the buckwheat, you know, all the ingredients are so wholesome. And the combination of them all together gives such good, solid, steady energy release.
I remember having an orange one a couple of years ago, actually, when you first brought them out. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. But I used to just have them with my coffee. Don't know if I was maybe having too many calories, but yeah.
If you're going to burn them off later, it doesn't matter.
So in terms of the advice, is there any other advice you'd give to, say, you know, a time poor dad or a mum, or even just someone that's just starting out? What sort of advice have you learned from your experience and then obviously running a big nutrition company?
I think it's not necessarily nutrition advice, it's just general advice. I think don't get too obsessed by your training. You know, running should be fun. So if it gets to the point in your marathon training or ultra training where you're hating it, you're not doing it, you know, it's kind of like that to me is kind of counterintuitive. It should be fun. I think it's definitely more fun if you're doing it with other people. Now, I know some people find it hard and they might not want to go with a group or anything like that, but I really do think if you can find somebody or some people to run with, that definitely makes it easier, because if nothing else, you've got folk to have a crack with, to talk about, to offload and all those different kind of things. So I think joining, you know, either getting some running friends, joining your local running club, or often nowadays, a lot of the running shops and places like that will have their own little groups. And I think they're brilliant. And I think that actually having that gives you that kind of structure as well, because it's almost like if they're training on a Tuesday and a Thursday, you then start building your life around those, and you can kind of set things in motion for parents, family, whatever, to look after the kids, whatever it may be. So you can go and do your hour of training with other people, and you're kind of sharing in that experience. So I think that's important. I think making sure that you're enjoying your training. But if you are doing it on your own, then, you can follow plans, but I don't think you should follow them to the point of, I hate this. I think ultimately, you're not training to become an Olympian. You're training because you want to do a marathon or a half marathon or even your first 5K or 10K. So you don't have to, if you don't want to do that day and you don't want to do those sprints or whatever it may be, just go out for a really nice run. Just go out for a really nice run and just enjoy it and get back and think, do you know what, I'm a step closer to wherever I was aiming to be, because whatever you do is still going to be a benefit to you, especially if it's your first time of doing something. I don't think even like when it comes to the event itself, I often say to people, don't treat it like the event. This is just treat it. You're hopefully going to go on to do more events. Just treat this like a training event, just like a training run. So don't get stressed. Don't worry about a time. Don't even set a time. Don't think, I've got to do this in 5 hours or whatever. Just set off and enjoy the journey. Make sure that your pace, I've done fell races before, longer ones, where I've actually literally gone to the back of the pack and set off. And I've made sure that I've overtaken people all day. And I've not run really fast. I've just gone steady away and I've overtaken people all day and I've really enjoyed myself and I've smiled and I've, encouraged people along the way. But there's nothing more fun or kind of better and gives you more of a lift than overtaking people who are, in an event, because you're like, I'm going faster than them. But you don't have to go really fast, because if you go further back, you've got more people to overtake. And it's that kind of thing of the further you are at the front, if you don't keep that pace up, they're all going to overtake you. Then you start feeling like shit because you've been overtaken. So find your place, go even further back. So if you think you should be midway, go 20 yards further back and then just start off slow, enjoy the journey. And then from there, build on it. So the next time you do a marathon, you've got this time. You've got a time that you set that you actually really enjoyed. Now, hopefully another year on or 6 months on, wherever it is, you would actually be fitter. So naturally you'll go faster anyway. So you can almost follow the same thing, same mental thought, but you still go faster. You still feel like you've achieved further, but you're not going to break yourself. Because I think not a lot of people, it makes me really sad when people finish like a 10K, the first 10K or the first marathon. So, God, so I'm never doing that again. And I just feel like, why? What did you do that made it so horrendous that you never want to do it again? And I think that's really sad, because I think you should enjoy running and you should enjoy the journey that you go on. And obviously it's better for everybody. The fitter we are, the healthier we are, the less likely we're going to have other related kind of health problems. So, yeah.
Is there any particular advice around injury that you want to share?
Injury? Oof, blimey. There we go. And this is my thing. I think ultimately, first of all, as I say on Facebook all the time, people asking Facebook about I've got this, that, and the other. What should I do? Don't ask Facebook. Either go to your doctor and they'll refer you to the NHS physios. Go to your physio, or even better, like I said before, if you're part of a group or a club or whatever, ask people there, who have you seen? Who do you see? And they'll refer you to people that they've had a really good experience with, who can actually look at your injury. And, it doesn't necessarily mean you're not going to be able to run. Some physios, whatever, will be able to say, look, all you've got to do is these exercises. Yeah, keep running. You've got to keep running. Do these exercises. Others, because of the injury, will say, look, I'm really sorry, but you have got to stop running for X weeks. But if you stop for X weeks and do these exercises, you'll be back on it. My problem was, I knew all these things. I knew all the people. I had amazing people I could have gone and saw, but I didn't want to stop running. So I'd carry on. And it was more and more painful, but I'd carry on. And I just broke myself. So I think the other thing is, it's like It's like there's a race coming up and you've got to do that race. You don't have to do that race. If you do, by doing that race, if it means you can't do the next 3 or 4 races, then actually it's a waste of time. And I think that's what it's been a very painful lesson to learn, but actually you've got to kind of respect your body. So you've got to, if you give yourself time to recover and do the proper exercises, even however boring they may seem, those things will actually give you that strength and stability to actually be a better runner and a fitter runner going forward.
Yeah, I agree. And being strong and giving yourself sort of enough recovery, and also combining that with good nutrition will help you in the long run. Is there a particular optimal time that you think, or amount of events someone should do in a year? Everyone's different, obviously, but if you're looking at, say, a marathon and a couple of ultras, what's the optimal amount, do you think, and sort of what's the recovery times, do you think?
I think it so depends on the person. I think, there's so many factors in there because you've got your ability to train. How often can you train? You've got it's not just about training, it's actually about your life. So it's actually what other things you've got going on in your life, whether it be your family, your friends, your work. And then it's also about, I think that one of the dangers, and I've seen this a lot over the years in running, I think one of the dangers is, I think when people are struggling emotionally, so with their kind of mental health, they feel a kind of need to enter a lot of events, and it's almost like a validation thing. I've entered all these events and I've got all these things. And I think the only danger with that is that when they then say, in an ultra, for example, there's a really good chance in ultras you're going to DNF. If they do DNF, it actually has a bigger negative effect on their mentality than a positive. And I would say that the more events you do, the more chances you have got of becoming injured. And then as such, if you're injured, you're either going to really go into an event with an injury, which is probably going to result in you not running it as well as you wanted to, or even not completing it, which does have a huge impact on your mental state. I think that running isn't the be all and end all. So I think you've got to find a balance between have a couple of marathons and some other types of races, maybe a couple of ultras a year, and do other bits and pieces as well. But I think it's also equally important to actually have other things that you have got interest in, whether it be other parts of training, like strength and conditioning is really important. So you don't have to join a gym to do it. So you can do those things at home yourself, or you can join a gym because you enjoy it or it's close by or whatever. It might be swimming, might be cycling, there might be other things, just walking. I think it's important to find a balance, have other things, because there's definitely periods of time when you're a runner that you will have injuries. And if running's your only thing and you're struggling a little bit emotionally and running is your only thing and you're injured for a period of time, that can have a huge impact on your kind of mental health. Whereas if you get injured and you've got these other interests, then actually you can still do those. You can still get some kind of satisfaction from other things and know that if I do these other things, I know I can run soon, but yeah, I'm enjoying this. It's like, I suppose for me now, I'm in a period where I cannot run. I never thought I would never run. Like everybody says, oh my God, how do you cope? I used to run all, and it's like, well, I've just found other things that I can do, and hopefully I will get back to running. But I've found other things that give me validation and that I enjoy. And I know that one day I hope I'll get back to running. But if I don't, I'm actually enjoying all these other things as well. And I think that's really important, just to have more than one thing that you're kind of grasping onto.
Yeah. Or I appreciate that. Like, I was a background in rugby, and make sure I do a few other things, like a little bit of swimming, a little bit of biking. We're just almost out of time, but is there any last comments, advice, anything you want to share with those listening?
I think as far as fueling goes, I think little and often is really important. Think fuel sooner than you think. So I would almost start fueling immediately in an event and then just start regularly doing it. It's almost like you're drip feeding your system. I think if you're doing an ultra, expect the uncomfortable, expect pain, expect that there will be times when you will be feeling nauseous. But again, it's really important that you do keep trying to fuel. And I think that's where something like the sports jellies come in really well, because they are easier to consume than other things. I think I touched on pace earlier, didn't I? Make sure that you pace sensibly. It's much more fun to overtake people and be overtaken. Recovery is important. Whether it's our recovery fuel or a different recovery method, make sure you recover well, because that enables you to then get back to doing what you enjoy sooner. And it also helps reduce kind of injuries. And I think the other thing is when you're running and stuff, I'm lucky where I live up in the Lake District. I'll often stop and I'll just look. I might be running up a hill and my head's out. I love running uphill and I'm in absolute agony. I'm pushing my hardest and I'll just stop and I'll turn around and I'll look where I've come from and I'll enjoy that view. And I'll say to my mates, or I'll say, guys, look, just stop. People pay for this. We're so lucky we live here. So enjoy what you do. Make sure that your training isn't all about blinkered focused speed and strength. It's actually about enjoying where you are. It doesn't matter where you are, whether you're running in a park in a city, or running up in the fells, or you're running around a river, or you're running a bloody car park. Every now and then, just appreciate and look at where you are. There's always going to be something that you can look at and think, I'm out here. This is amazing, And I think just enjoy the process. I think that's the main thing. For me, running is fun. Enjoy it. Make the most of it. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I think I'm sure I could rattle on for hours, but I better stop.
No, well, I really appreciate your time. I know we had just a short hour together, so thank you very much for coming onto the show. For those that are listening, you want to check out Mountain Fuel, we'll put a few links in the show notes and things. I recommend, or highly recommend, the sports jelly. The lemon lime is my favorite. And if you want to have a nice snack while you're having a cup of coffee, the Feel Good bars are also really, really good. Thank you very much again, Rupert, for coming on the show, and best of luck and best wishes with the company and everything going forward. So thank you.
Brilliant. Lovely. Thanks a lot, Nick.
And thank you to the listener. Thank you very much for listening.
Yeah, thank you all.